My father's funeral hadn't even been over for a week before the locks were changed. My name is Elena Vance, and for 22 years, I lived in the shadow of my father's love. But when his heart gave out, the light in our mansion went out with him. My stepmother, Patricia, didn't shed a single tear. To her, my father wasn't a husband. He was a signature on a bank account. Within days, she had sold his vintage cars, fired the staff who had raised me, and turned my childhood home into a hollow shell of its former glory. "You're an expensive mouth to feed, Elena," Patricia sneered one evening, swirling a glass of wine that cost more than my monthly allowance. "Your father left the estate in shambles. If we want to keep this roof over our heads, you need to be useful." I knew that look. It was the look of a predator. "I'll get a job, Patricia," I said, my voice trembling. "I have my degree. I can work." "A job?" she laughed, a shrill, cold sound. "You don't understand. I've already settled the debt. I've found a man willing to take you off my hands. He's a recluse. A nobody from the outskirts of the city. He's offered enough to keep me in silk for a decade." My heart plummeted. "You're selling me? This isn't the Dark Ages, Patricia. It's a marriage contract, darling. Legal and binding. You marry him tomorrow or you walk out that door with nothing but the clothes on your back. No phone, no money, no memories of your father." I looked at the portrait of my father on the wall. I couldn't leave his legacy to be burned to the ground by this woman. I had to stay close. I had to survive. "Who is he?" I whispered. "His name is Silas," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "He lives in some run-down shack near the docks. Probably a dock worker or a failed mechanic. He's perfect for you, Elena. A fallen princess for a bottom feeder." That night I cried until my eyes were swollen shut. I imagined a life of misery, locked away in a small dark room with a man who had bought me like a piece of livestock. I prepared myself for the worst. I packed a single suitcase with my father's old watch and a few books. But the next morning when the doorbell rang, the man standing there wasn't what I expected. He wore a faded gray hoodie and worn-out jeans. His boots were scuffed. But his eyes, they were a deep, piercing charcoal that seemed to hold a galaxy of secrets. He stood tall, with a quiet strength that made Patricia look small and frantic. "I'm Silas," he said. His voice was like velvet over gravel, deep, steady, and strangely comforting. Patricia didn't even look him in the face. She just snatched the envelope he held and counted the cash inside. "She's yours. Take her. Don't bring her back." Silas didn't look at Patricia. He looked at me. He saw the tears. He saw the fear. And for a split second I saw his jaw tighten. "Are you ready, Elena?" he asked softly. I nodded, stepping over the threshold of my father's house for what I thought was the last time. Silas took my suitcase, his hand brushing mine. His skin was warm, and for the first time since the funeral I didn't feel like I was freezing to death. As we walked toward his beat-up, rusty truck, I looked back at Patricia, who was already calling a jeweler to celebrate. I thought my life was over. I had no idea that for Silas the game was just beginning. The drive was long and silent. I sat in the passenger seat of Silas's rusted truck, staring out at the gray skyline of the city. Every mile we traveled felt like a mile further away from the life I knew. I expected us to stop in the slums, or perhaps a cramped apartment building smelling of damp and old wood. Silas drove with one hand on the wheel, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. He didn't try to make small talk. He didn't ask me why I was crying. He simply let me be. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Somewhere safe," was all he said. We left the city lights behind, winding through a thick forest of pine trees that seemed to swallow the road. Eventually we reached a massive iron gate. It looked ancient, covered in ivy, but as the truck approached, the gate swung open with a silent, high-tech precision that didn't match the rusted vehicle we were in. We pulled up to a house. But it wasn't a shack. It was a modern architectural marvel. a structure of glass, dark wood and stone tucked into the side of a cliff. It was hidden from the world, invisible to anyone who didn't know the secret path. "This is yours?" I asked, stepping out of the truck. "This is home," Silas replied. He grabbed my suitcase with ease. "Inside, Elena. The air is getting cold." The interior was warmer than the mansion I grew up in. Soft amber lights glowed along the floorboards. There were no servants, no cold portraits of ancestors, just a vast library that stretched to the ceiling and a view of the valley below that took my breath away. "Patricia said you were a dock worker," I said, turning to him. Silas pulled back his hoodie, revealing a face that was even more striking in the light. He had a scar near his temple, a reminder of a life lived hard, but his eyes held a strange ancient wisdom. "Patricia sees what she wants to see," he said, walking to a sleek kitchen island. She saw a man in a dirty hoodie with cash in his hand. She didn't bother to ask where the cash came from or why I wanted a girl she treated like garbage. He poured a glass of water and handed it to me. His fingers touched mine and I felt that same electric spark. "Why did you want me, Silas?" He leaned against the counter, his charcoal eyes boring into mine. "Your father was a good man, Elena. Before Patricia bled him dry and blinded him with her games, he did a favor for a young man who had nothing. He gave me the seed money for my first patent. He told me that one day his daughter might need a friend. I've been watching you for a year. I saw what she was doing to you." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You knew my father?" "I knew his soul. And I know yours. Patricia thought she was selling you into a life of misery. She doesn't realize she just handed me the one thing I couldn't buy on the open market." He stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "You aren't a prisoner here, Elena. You're the mistress of this house. You have full access to my accounts, my staff, who arrive at dawn, and my protection. Tomorrow we go to the city. You're going to need a wardrobe that matches your new status." "But the contract," I stammered. "The marriage. The marriage is real," he said, his voice dropping to a low, possessive hum. "But it won't be a cage. It'll be a shield. Patricia thinks she won. She's currently at the casino spending the money I gave her. She doesn't know that the bank holding her mortgage was acquired by my firm this morning." I gasped. "You own her debt?" "I own everything she touches," Silas said, a cold, predatory light flickering in his eyes. "But for now we wait. Let her feel powerful. Let her spend every cent. The higher she climbs, the harder she'll hit the ground when I decide to pull the rug." He pointed toward a hallway. "The master suite is yours. I'll be in the study. Sleep well, Elena. Your life as a victim ended the moment you stepped into this truck." As I lay in the oversized bed that night, listening to the wind howl through the pines, I realized that Silas wasn't just a millionaire. He was an executioner. And I was the only person in the world he had decided to spare. The next morning, the nobody in the hoodie was gone. In his place stood a man who looked like he had been sculpted from shadows and steel. Silas was dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him with surgical precision, his dark hair swept back, revealing the sharp, intelligent lines of a face built for command. "We have a busy day, Elena," he said, handing me a black credit card that had no limit and no name, only a gold emblem. "Patricia told the world you were marrying a beggar. Today we start correcting the narrative." We drove back into the city, but this time the rusted truck was replaced by a midnight blue Continental. We pulled up to Avenue Montaigne, the most exclusive shopping district in the city, a place where the doors are locked and you only enter by appointment. As we walked into Valerius, the boutique where I used to shop with my father, the sales clerk, a woman named Claire who had known me for years, looked up. Her eyes raked over my simple jeans and the old coat I had brought from the mansion. "I'm sorry," Claire said, her voice dripping with artificial politeness. "We are fully booked for the day. Perhaps there's a department store nearby that would suit your current situation." I felt the old sting of shame, but before I could turn away, I felt a heavy, warm hand on the small of my back. She isn't looking for a department store, Silas said. His voice wasn't loud, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She's looking for the fall collection. All of it. In her size. Claire laughed, a nervous, mocking sound. Sir, do you have any idea what the fall collection costs? This isn't a place for. Silas didn't argue. He simply laid his black card on the glass counter. Claire's laughter died in her throat. She recognized that card. It was a black tier sovereign. A card issued only to the top 0.1% of the bank's clients. Mr. Reed, she stammered, her face turning a ghostly shade of white. I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize. Elena, darling. It's been so long. It's Mrs. Reed now, Silas corrected coldly. And darling is reserved for people she actually likes. Start pulling the dresses. Now. For the next 3 hours I was transformed. I stepped out of the dressing room in a gown of emerald silk that flowed like water. Silas sat in a leather chair, watching me with an intensity that made my heart skip beats. He didn't look at the price tags. He only looked at me. Keep it on, he said as we prepared to leave. We're stopping by the Vance mansion. I believe your stepmother is hosting a celebration for her newfound wealth. My heart hammered. Silas, I'm not ready to face her. He stood up, tall and immovable. You don't have to face her, Elena. You just have to stand there and look like the queen you are. I'll do the rest. When we arrived at the mansion, the driveway was packed with the luxury cars of the city's elite. The same people who had turned their backs on my father the moment he died. Through the windows I could see Patricia, draped in new diamonds, laughing with a group of socialites. We walked in through the front doors. The room fell silent. It was a slow, agonizing silence that started at the entrance and moved like a wave to the back of the hall. Patricia turned, a glass of champagne in her hand. Elena? What on earth are you doing here? And who is this driver? She looked at Silas, but she didn't see the hoodie. He saw the suit. She saw the watch on his wrist that cost more than her house. Her eyes went wide, her brain struggling to connect the nobody she sold me to with the titan standing in her living room. You remember my husband, Silas? I said, my voice clearer and stronger than it had ever been. Husband? Patricia gasped, her glass trembling. But the man who came to the door. He was a dock worker. He was a beggar. I prefer the term undercover, Silas said, stepping forward. The socialites shifted back, sensing the danger radiating from him. You see, Patricia, I like to know exactly what kind of person I'm dealing with before I make a purchase. I bought Elena's freedom from you. And now. He paused, pulling a legal document from his jacket. I'm here to collect on the rest. What are you talking about? Patricia shrieked. The Vance estate is no longer yours, Silas said calmly. The bank foreclosed 10 minutes ago. I am the new owner of this house, these grounds, and everything inside them. You have exactly 1 hour to pack your things in garbage bags and leave. If you're still here at sunset, I'll have you removed for trespassing. The room erupted in whispers. Patricia's face went from white to red to a sickly purple. You can't do this. I have a contract. Read the fine print, Patricia, Silas whispered, leaning in so only she could hear. You sold me Elena. But you forgot that Elena is the sole heir to the Vance Trust. By marrying her, I didn't just get a wife. I got the legal right to audit every cent you've stolen from this family. As the realization hit her, Patricia collapsed into a chair, her diamonds suddenly looking like cheap glass. I looked around the room, at the friends who had mocked me, at the woman who had sold me, and for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a Reed. And my king was just getting started. The drive back to the cliffside house was different. The silence wasn't heavy with fear anymore. It was thick with a new electric tension. I looked at Silas as he drove. The sharp lines of his suit, the steady grip of his hands on the wheel. He looked like a different man than the one who had picked me up in a rusted truck only 48 hours ago. "You didn't just save me, did you?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the hum of the Continental's engine. "You've been planning this for a long time." Silas didn't look away from the road, but a small, dark smile touched his lips. "I don't believe in coincidences, Elena. When your father died and I saw Patricia's name on the gambling ledgers of the city's underground, I knew she'd eventually look for a way out. I just made sure I was the only door she could walk through." When we arrived home, the house was bathed in the blue light of the coming storm. Inside, the staff had already departed, leaving the sanctuary in a pristine golden glow. "Why the hoodie, Silas?" I asked as he poured us 2 glasses of wine. "Why the act? You could have walked into that mansion on day one and bought it with pocket change." He handed me a glass, his fingers lingering against mine. "Because I needed to know if you were like her. If I had walked in with a fleet of cars and a diamond ring, you would have seen the money. I wanted you to see the man. I wanted to see if the daughter of the man who saved me had his heart, or his stepmother's greed." He walked over to a bookshelf and pulled a hidden lever. A section of the wall slid back, revealing a private elevator. "There's something you need to see," he said. We descended deep into the cliffside. When the doors opened, I gasped. It wasn't a wine cellar or a vault. It was a massive high-tech command center. Screens lined the walls, tracking global markets, shipping lanes, and tech patents. "This is the Reed Empire," Silas said, stepping into the light of the monitors. "Patricia thought I was a dockworker because I spend my mornings at the shipyards, overseeing the construction of the most advanced fleet in the world. She thought I was a mechanic because I personally test the engines that will one day power the city's green grid." He turned to me, his charcoal eyes burning. "Everything your father dreamed of, the sustainable energy, the ethical shipping, I built it. I took his ideas and I turned them into a fortress that no one can breach. I didn't marry you to protect a fallen princess, Elena. I married you because this empire, it belongs to you as much as it belongs to me." The weight of his words hit me. He hadn't just saved my life, he had preserved my father's soul. "Silas," I started, but the words caught in my throat. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. He reached out, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw with a tenderness that made my knees weak. "I told you that your father did me a favor. He didn't just give me money. He gave me a picture once. A photo of you in the university garden. He told me that you were the only thing in his life that was truly pure. I've carried that photo for 5 years." He pulled his wallet from his jacket and took out a faded, worn photograph. It was me, laughing under a cherry blossom tree, years before the grief had taken my smile. "I didn't buy you, Elena," he whispered, his face inches from mine. "I waited for you. And now that you're here, I have no intention of ever letting you go." The storm outside finally broke, thunder shaking the very glass of the house. But inside I felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. I reached up, my fingers tangling in the hair at the nape of his neck, and pulled him down. When he kissed me, it wasn't the kiss of a stranger or a nobody. It was the kiss of a man who had built a kingdom just to have someone to share it with. But as we stood there, lost in each other, a red light began to flash on one of the monitors. Silas pulled back, his eyes instantly turning cold and professional. "What is it?" I asked. "Patricia," he said, looking at the screen. "It seems she didn't take her eviction quietly. She's at the downtown precinct, claiming I kidnapped you and forced the marriage under duress. She's brought the press, Elena. She's trying to burn the Reed name before it even hits the headlines." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "What do we do?" Silas straightened his suit, a terrifying, beautiful smile spreading across his face. "We give them what they want. We give them a show. Pack your most expensive dress, Elena. We're going to the precinct, and we're going to make sure Patricia Vance never sees the light of day again." The downtown precinct was swarming with reporters. Patricia had played her last card, and she had played it loud. She stood on the steps of the station, her face a mask of fake grief, clutching a handkerchief as she told the cameras how her innocent stepdaughter had been snatched away by a dangerous criminal. "He forced her," she cried to a reporter. "He used his shadow wealth to trap her. I just want my daughter back." Suddenly, the sea of reporters parted. A fleet of black SUVs pulled up to the curb, moving with the synchronized precision of a military unit. The doors opened and Silas stepped out. He didn't look like a kidnapper. He looked like the man who owned the city. And then he reached back and took my hand. I stepped out in a gown of midnight blue, my diamonds catching the camera flashes like 1,000 stars. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a queen. "Elena!" Patricia shrieked, running toward me. "Officers, arrest him. That's the man." The police captain stepped forward, but Silas didn't flinch. He handed a leather briefcase to the officer. "Captain," Silas said, his voice calm and terrifyingly steady. "Before you listen to the ramblings of a woman who just lost her house, perhaps you should look at the results of the forensic audit my firm conducted over the last 6 hours." Patricia froze. "Audit? What audit?" "The one that proves you didn't just spend my father's money, Patricia," I said, stepping forward, my voice echoing in the silent street. "It proves you were poisoning him. Slow-acting arsenic in his daily tea. You didn't just want his money, you wanted him gone so you could clear your debts." The crowd gasped. The reporters turned their cameras away from me and directly onto Patricia's pale, trembling face. "That's a lie," she screamed. "You can't prove that." "Actually," Silas said, pulling a small glass vial from the briefcase, the one he had recovered from her private vanity that morning, "we can. Along with the digital records of your offshore accounts and the signed confession from the doctor you bribed to sign the death certificate." The captain's face hardened. He looked at the documents, then at Patricia. "Patricia Vance, you are under arrest for the first-degree murder of Richard Vance and for multiple counts of grand larceny." The handcuffs clicked shut. The sound was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. As Patricia was dragged away, screaming and cursing my name, the reporters rushed us. "Mr. Reed, is it true you're the CEO of the Reed Global Group? Elena, how does it feel to have your father's legacy back?" Silas didn't answer them. He simply put his arm around my waist, shielding me from the noise, and led me back to the car. "It's over, Elena," he whispered as the doors closed, silencing the world outside. "Your father has his justice. And you have your life back." 1 year later, the Vance mansion was no longer a hollow shell. We had turned it into the Richard Vance Foundation, a sanctuary for women and children who had been displaced by the very greed that almost destroyed me. I stood on the balcony, looking out at the gardens where the cherry blossoms were finally in bloom. I felt a pair of strong arms wrap around my waist. Silas pulled me back against his chest, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Are you happy, Elena?" he asked. I turned in his arms, looking into the charcoal eyes that had once looked at me from beneath a hoodie. I saw the man who had built an empire from scratch, yet chose to spend his life protecting me. "I'm more than happy, Silas," I said, reaching up to trace the scar on his temple. "I'm home." He leaned down, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that tasted of victory and a love that had been 5 years in the making. The stepmother had tried to sell me into a cage, but all she had done was hand me the key to a kingdom. "My name is Elena Reed, and my father once told me that the greatest wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in the person who stands beside you when everyone else walks away. I found my wealth in the shadows and I'm never letting it go." And that everyone is how the nobody became the hero of the Vance legacy. A powerful reminder that those we overlook are often the ones holding the keys to our destiny. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to English Story with Masha. We pour our hearts into these long-form cinematic tales, and your support keeps the stories coming. Hit that like button if you loved seeing Patricia get exactly what she deserved. And I want to hear your thoughts. Comment the word justice if you think Silas is the ultimate protector. Don't forget to check out the other billionaire revenge stories on your screen right now. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and remember, your greatest ally might be the person you least expect. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the love, everyone.